All right, good morning. Welcome back here to Trader Minute. Great to have you aboard. Interesting market open for many reasons, and one that yeah, it's one that if it reverses off of this level and reverses down, it would be pretty ugly. Just the way that it's moved, and if there is that reversal. That said, so far there's not. Now, and the reason I paused there, because just as I'm speaking, we see a volume candle pop up. You'll notice the volumes have been really light this morning. We saw them pretty light yesterday too. So, it's that has been a theme here. But we have a little higher volume right here on this move, so we might be looking at the top for the day. It doesn't mean we have to go down from it, but to close above this level may be a little difficult for the market. That said, it's not enough volume for me to want to short it off of this level. But anyway, we saw that just come in here. But this is a market here this morning that, continues to be highly differential. Just because the market's up doesn't mean everything's down or everything's up. And continues to be one that most stocks remain in consolidation, right? They haven't broken one way or the other. And by consolidation, I'm talking on the daily charts just kind of chopping through ranges. A really good example is just the small cap index, the IWM, right? I mean, it's just chopping through ranges, right? One day it's down, one day it's up, one day it's down, and the IWM's up. Is the market going to go up? Oh, it's down. Is it going to go? It just continues to chop through ranges, and it has broken its recent highs. It's broken its recent lows, but it's not getting out of this overall consolidation range here. And a lot of stocks are very similar in that regard. Now, three things I want to show you here in this video. Number one, show you Apple real quick. Number two, show you Boeing and a kicking candle. And number three, show you all the 3-7 crossover action that's happening out there in the market today. And that's probably where you're going to see my next trade come from. But, let's start with Apple. I got into Apple yesterday as, about 20 minutes after I ended the video saying I was going to go into the closing cash. Two of you pointed that out to me here today. And yes, I reserve the right to change my mind. And I absolutely will on occasion, and will continue to do so on occasion. And, I try to be transparent with what I'm planning and what I'm going to do. But, let's face it, the market changes. The market moves, the market evolves, and, it can change fairly quickly. And I'm going to react there, not just kind of sit there every time. And I changed my mind and I got in. I also changed my mind in terms of running with it, and I cashed out of Apple here this morning. Partly because we're dealing with a gap up in the market, and if this gap reverses, it's pretty ugly, and wanted to lock in a decent win for the challenge here to start off with. And I kind of felt that was important for myself and for many out there that are trading along with the challenge. So I took that opportunity. I still expect Apple to go higher. I was kind of hoping it would pull back just a little bit, maybe get a chance to re-enter with a little bit of a different option, but so far hasn't. But still most likely goes higher here. It's one of those where when it gets to the upper band, it will probably see a little resistance, but that's up around 218. And so if Apple keeps going at this pace, it'll probably hit that upper band around 215, 216, maybe 217. But overall in a great position. I'll look for another entry here on it and look to play Apple here going forward. You'll notice that the challenge trades that I've talked about have had this kind of similar pattern. Apple, this is the same pattern as Chipotle, and I didn't, unfortunately didn't play it, but that same pattern, right? And even when we go look at some of the other things I've discussed, like Discover and Capital One, that same pattern. And it's a pattern that has emerged here. It's not a super common pattern, but it's one that very tradable overall. So anyway, used it to get the first challenge trade under our belts here. Number 2, Boeing. Boeing here has been trading pretty ugly, and it has been drop yesterday, pretty bad day, and today gap up above yesterday's open price. And this is what some technicians would call, or some candlestick traders would call, a kicking pattern. And it's basically where you just completely abandon the prior day. And, after you have a big drop, and then you completely abandon the sell day here, especially if that sell day has some volume, that tends to be pretty darn bullish going forward. Now, these types of patterns tend to do one of two things. They can go straight up and go back and push on higher. But oftentimes, we'll see them consolidate this for 4, 5, 6 days, at times, and then move on up. We saw some kicking action back here, that consolidated for a few days before going higher, and it's Boeing, so there's going to be some volatility, but Boeing on my radar for an entry as we go forward. Really like the price action that it has here today in terms of its implications for Boeing to trade up into the 360, 370, 380 area over the course of the coming months. And so we'll be looking for entries there with Boeing going forward, as I really like some of the kicking action here with it. Okay, so anyway, that's Boeing, that's Apple. Anyway, 3-7 action out there in the market. There's a lot of it. And what is the 3-7 action? Well, KD signals are built on the 3-day and the 7-day moving average. And what you'll find is that every emerging trend in every stock that pushes into a trend has one thing in common. Well, it has several things in common, but it always has a period where the 3-day moving average, our blue line here, crosses up above our 7-day moving average, our red line. Every emerging trend, before a stock goes on a trend, that happens. Now, you can have it cross and then, cross back down and cross up and whipsaw a few times. But it's one of the things that we always see happen. And so it's one of those things that I like to look for, especially on a day like today where you're saying, you know what, are we looking at the market emerging into a trend, or are we looking at the market just kind of staying in some consolidation? And today there's a lot of 3-7 crossover action going on out there in the market amongst a lot of stocks. Things like Target, which, 3-7 crossed down yesterday. Okay, now it's crossing back up today. A little whipsaw, action, not necessarily indicative of a brand new trend. It's been on a nice trend and been running here. Something like a key bank. We talked about this earlier this week, and yesterday it got hit with the rest of the market, but popping back up here has that 3-7 action associated to it. But some of my favorite that have that action, American Airlines. Has that 3-7 action here today with it. This is a stock that, for me, has bottomed, at least here in the short run. This volume action right here, suggests that, bottoms in, and, it tried to break out right here, failed, and is kind of pulled on back, and we're seeing now this 3-7 cross, and to be able to play this up into the 40s, I think is a very, very tempting proposition. So very curious to see how it trades, throughout the rest of this day, and going forward to tomorrow, and seeing what the risk reward scenario is. But American Airlines high on my list for an entry. Johnson & Johnson, my favorite out there by far. J&J, you want to look at a stock that pulled back on no volume after rallying on pretty good volume. It pulled back on no volume, and now in 2 days is erasing a week's worth of sell. This is the type of action that tends to go strongly higher, and is the type of action that I want to be involved with. I looked at the option pricing this morning and decided to hold off just a little bit. See if I can buy a little bit of a dip here today, but so far not dipping. If we come in and look at the options, the Septembers are kind of pricey here. 277, 286, and by pricey, not a high implied volatility, but not a great delta for the option. But if I come into something like the August 31st, the spreads are just a little bit too high. If I come out to September, the spreads are still a little too high. So really with J&J, I kind of have to play the monthly, so it makes it a little tougher there. With the spreads where they are. But that's typical. That's typical with J&J. That's not something new and unusual here with the stock. But just in terms of the chart, my absolute favorite, but not sure if I'm going to be able to get in based on the option values. But that has a nice 3-7 crossover action. We see other names like Seagate, STX, with some of that, but it's one of those where I'm not uber bullish on the stock, but definitely has it. Best Buy, so different sectors here. DHI, has it. This is Dr. Horton. This is a home builder here, which you look at the recovery from Home Depot. You go, okay, yeah, great, but not necessarily something I want to be involved with in a big way. IBM, which and I talked about it yesterday, I'm very bullish on IBM. Love the price action here today. And, we saw some good volume in it yesterday. This is one where we've seen the sell volumes become very tempered and the buy volumes increase. And just one that ultimately I think trades up into the 150s, mid 150s. And, over the course of the next several weeks, as long as the market itself holds on. We talked about some of these credit card names. American Express has the 3-7 crossover action on it today. Things like a Raytheon RTN, has the 3-7 crossover, but still strongly in consolidation. FedEx has the 3-7 action on it today. So there are a lot of big names out there that have this kind of action, and it's across sectors. I mean, Amgen, has it, and so we can go from healthcare to consumer to tech, and see several of these things out there. And when I say tech, I'm not talking about FANG, right? I'm not talking about your Facebooks. We don't have 3-7 action here on Facebook. In fact, it's on the downside. We don't have 3-7 action on a Micron or something like that. It's the IBMs, it's the Symantec, it's the Seagates, it's some of the older types of tech here. So anyway, wanted to point those out, show those to you here this morning. I'm not buying any of them right here, but if we see some of these hold, I will look to jump in, take advantage of them. You can see something like a TMK here, but there's a lot that I look at and say, you know what? These are some nice price actions that offer some pretty good risk reward. And one thing that's really nice about the overall price action today is the implied volatilities are dropping. We see the VIX down 10%, and what's that mean? Well, options significantly cheaper for the majority of things than what they were yesterday. And so with that move, it makes it a little bit easier to want to step in, from an options standpoint here. Okay, I don't think we can say, oh, market's out of the woods and the market's just going to go up from here and everything else. We're still in the same old chop. It's still in the same spot it was. I do think it's pretty positive to have that kind of breakdown yesterday, to break down those lows, to have everything suggest, okay, down we go, and to see this pop up. I think that's very encouraging. I think it's very encouraging that we see new trade talks starting to emerge between China and the U.S. They've been on pause for about 2 months now. So I think that's very encouraging. And, I think perhaps the most encouraging thing for the market would be for the U.S. dollar to drop. And, we're seeing that a little bit today, but we're not seeing money just boat race into some of these, dollar names that got ripped yesterday. You look at the FCXs, got ripped yesterday. Not exactly a big bounce here today compared to what it dropped yesterday. We look at a BHP. Same type of thing. We look at the energy sector, same type of thing. These are pretty dead cat type bounces here for a lot of these names. They just got ripped in a big way yesterday. So, it's not something where I look and just go, oh, okay, go buy anything, you'll be fine type of market. It just isn't that, and it's not going to be that, anytime soon. And, that differentiation, remains very, very high. You look at UPS, held up phenomenally yesterday, with the market down today, market up and, barely up, right? While FedEx itself, popping up a little bit better. And I think we'll just continue to see some of this play off as, as we go forward. So anyway, those are some of my thoughts here on the market. Boeing, I'll be looking for an entry. I mean, I'm not going to chase it here at 344, 343. I do, this is something where if it were to close here, I'd wait until tomorrow, see what tomorrow brings if I can't find a pullback spot here for it. But to me, Boeing, a few of these 37s have given some pretty nice signals. J&J, as far as, what they're going to do going forward. IBM, and yes, they are all subject to get wrecked if the market gets wrecked, right? But assuming the market holds or assuming a flat market, these are names that I would expect to push on higher. In terms of the downside, we saw a bearish Katie signal on Adobe yesterday. I priced out some Adobe puts this morning. I haven't pulled the trigger. You could argue maybe I should have already, but this is one where I do think we're talking path of least resistance is lower here in the short run. Microsoft showed up as well, and I'm not as bearish on Microsoft as I am, Adobe in terms of pullback potential. Both of these, these are quality names. These are names that have just had phenomenal earnings, so it's not like we can make a huge bearish fundamental argument on them, which kind of creates a little bit of hesitation in me. But, definitely had that Katie signal action on them yesterday, so we'll see how that emerges here. But, if Adobe closes below, if Adobe closes in the red here today, it's one of those that we could be talking about trading down into the 235, 230 area, fairly quickly, even without the market itself having to do a heck of a whole lot. Thanks for hopping on. Have yourselves a great day, and we'll talk to you later. Take care.